The Sketchbook'S curse. After the end of school, Mark dreaded his solo walk to the art studio. The path, usually bearable with Ben by his side, now felt endless. Ben, his best friend and secret boyfriend, lay unconscious in the hospital, beaten brutally outside the gym. Mark settled on a bench, pulling out his sketchbook. He opened it to a drawing of Ben, peaceful and smiling. Ben always hated posing for him, but had been Mark's favorite subject. They met in sophomore year, their bond evolving from friendship into something deeper. A few students passed by, whispering. The attack started soon after people discovered the truth about Mark and Ben. Ben had been the victim of a violent assault, suffering internal injuries and a coma. Mark suspected who did it, but he had no proof. His frustration mounted with every passing day. Mark's eyes welled with tears as he began to redraw Ben's portrait. His hand shook as he added color, bringing life to Ben's serene expression. He vowed to frame the drawing and place it next to Ben's hospital bed. Suddenly, a harsh laugh shattered the silence. Two boys, Jake and Ryan, had approached him. They were notorious bullies, having made life miserable for Mark since the rumors about him and Ben spread. "Look, it's the little artist," Jake sneered, slapping the sketchbook from Mark's lap. The pages scattered across the floor. "What's this?" "A love note to your boyfriend." Ryan picked up the crumpled drawing of Ben, eyes glinting with malice. "Nice artwork," he mocked before ripping it to pieces. The fragments fell at Mark's feet, his heart breaking with every tear. Mark said nothing. He'd learned long ago that defending himself only made things worse. Instead, he watched silently as they laughed, taunting him until they grew bored and wandered off. As he bent to gather the torn pages, a voice startled him. "Need a hand?" It was Mr. Ahmed, the school's new janitor. He knelt beside Mark, collecting the remnants of his sketches. Mark hesitated, but Mr. Ahmed's kind eyes softened his guard. "It's just a drawing," Mark mumbled. Mr. Ahmed held out the pieces. "Looked like more than that to me." Mark nodded, unsure what to say. The janitor pulled out a small sketch pad from his pocket. "I sketch too, sometimes during my breaks. Maybe you'd like to try a few clean pages." Mark was about to refuse, but the way Mr. Ahmed smiled made him reconsider. "Thanks," he said, taking the pad. "Remember," Mr. Ahmed said with a grin, "the real magic happens when you add color. It brings things to life." Mark offered a half-hearted smile, feeling a slight chill as Mr. Ahmed walked away. After practice, Mark rushed to the hospital. He sat beside Ben, who lay still, connected to machines. Mark held Ben's hand, his throat tight with emotion. He took out the new sketch pad and started drawing. The strokes came easily, capturing Ben's face, bruises and all. As Mark colored in Ben's features, he felt a strange pull. His fingers tingled as he shaded in Ben's scars. Suddenly, Mark looked up. The bruise on Ben's cheek, the one he had just drawn, was gone. Mark blinked, confused. He glanced back at his sketch. There, in his drawing, the bruise was fading. He looked back at Ben, and sure enough, the real bruise disappeared completely. His heart raced. Could his drawings be changing reality? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. For days, Mark wrestled with this discovery. He had the power to heal Ben, but as he sat with his sketch pad, another thought crept into his mind, a darker one. Jake and Ryan, the ones who did this to Ben. Could he punish them? The temptation grew. Mark sketched their faces, their cruel grins. He felt the coldness from that day return, urging him on. As he drew their figures, his hand trembled, hovering over the eraser. Slowly, deliberately, he began erasing. Miles away, Jake and Ryan were walking home from practice. Without warning, Jake collapsed, clutching his arm as it bent in an unnatural direction. Ryan fell next, screaming as his leg twisted grotesquely. Panic and confusion spread through the group as their bodies crumbled, limbs vanishing as if erased by an unseen hand. In the hospital, Ben stirred. Mark stared at the page in front of him, the image of the bullies now erased, leaving only blank space. He felt a rush of satisfaction, but it was quickly replaced by dread. Had he gone too far? Before he could think further, a knock on the door startled him. It was Mr. Ahmed. "How's the drawing coming?" he asked with an all-too-knowing smile. Mark froze, suddenly aware of the darkness creeping into his soul. Mr. Ahmed's grin widened as he added, "Remember, color brings everything to life." Mark's hands trembled, the sketch pad heavy in his lap. He no longer knew where the power ended and where his own darkness began. And as Mr. Ahmed turned to leave, Mark realized something terrifying. The janitor wasn't just helping him draw. He was guiding him down a path that would change everything forever.